Hey everyone, good afternoon. This is County Executive Pat Ryan. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. We have updates on COVID as usual. I also want to get everybody excited and informed and hopefully signed up to participate tomorrow night in our Justice and Reform committee meeting. That's a public meeting. Virtual, of course, unfortunately, but really want everybody to be involved and engaged in that. And then I'm going to talk just for a minute at the end about what's happening down in Washington, D.C. with federal discussion, legislation being proposed and discussed, and how that will affect us right here in Ulster County and the critical moment that we're at there. So we'll try to get through all that relatively quickly. Starting with the COVID situation and starting with the data, as we always like to do, we are still in a very good place, and frankly, the last 4 or 5 days have actually been some of the most positive, encouraging in terms of the data and in terms of where we're at in Ulster County with COVID. So thank you to everyone for helping make that happen. That is not by accident. Cumulatively, since the beginning of the epidemic, we have had 1,920 positive cases. And we have now tested, that's out of 48,532 tests, which is pretty amazing and a big credit to everyone that's been a part of our testing efforts. So thanks to all those who have not just been tested, but who are doing the testing. We did, in the last few days, have 2 additional fatalities, unfortunately. So we are now at 90 members of our community that have succumbed to COVID-19. So we know that this is still a real risk and in some cases a deadly risk. And we should not forget that. We have had 1,709 recovered, though, so that is positive. As we look out and look at our projections, we're still in a very good place here. Because of the low rate of new infections, our projections are really very low now, looking out 10 days, which you can see there on the graph, and we're in good shape. In terms of hospitalizations, we are hovering right at that same level. We currently have 1 individual in an Ulster County hospital bed with COVID-19, and you can see on the graph that really since mid-June, now going on 6+ weeks, we've been right around that very low level of hospitalizations, thank God. So we hope to maintain that, and we send our love and our prayers to our neighbor that is in the hospital right now fighting. In terms of active cases, we are at 121 active cases. Again, we've been hovering, you can see on the graph as well, right around that same level. So what that kind of means is, yes, we have more people recovering over time, but we are still seeing a slow trickle of new cases. And so we've been holding about steady at that 121 level. Just to give you a sense, though, that is, we have a population in the county of 200,000 folks. And so 121 out of that is a number that we, of course, want to be 0, but that is a pretty low, pretty good number. And we hope to maintain it at that level and ultimately bring that active number down to 0 as we move forward. Most important metric that we always look at is the number of new positive cases day over day, and very good news to report here. In the last 24 hours, we've had 4 new positive cases of 476 tested, so under 1%, which is where we want to be. Even more encouragingly, over the last 72 hours, we've only had 5 new cases out of 1,350 tested. So that's a 0.37% infection rate of new infection rate. And on Sunday, I think it was the first day in maybe since March, we had 0 new positive cases on Sunday. Yesterday we had, that was Saturday. On Sunday we had 1 new positive, and yesterday we had 4. So we're looking very good. I don't say this to, it's a tough line to balance or to walk. I don't say this to say that we can put our guard down. I just say this to say that what we're doing with our guard up is working, and let's continue to do that, please, as we drive forward. Hospital capacity, we're in very good shape here, as you can see, moving forward. And finally, in terms of how are we positioned, how ready are we to be proactive and to respond quickly if and when we do have small resurgences or possible clusters. We are in very good shape, and the last 3 weeks have really forced us to test our rapid response plan. And I've talked about that extensively, but that is the plan that we set up with 5 components to it that really allows us to not just be sitting back and feel sort of powerless against COVID, but to say, no, we know that pockets may emerge, but when they do, we will be ready. We will quickly react to them. That starts with our testing, and last week we did Ulster County Get Tested Week. We saw the testing numbers go up, so thank you to everyone for that. My wife and I got tested as well. We were thankfully negative, so we joined the ranks of the many others. That testing must continue. That'll allow us to quickly detect any reemergent pockets. Then we investigate with contact tracing. We isolate using quarantines. We continue to communicate throughout, and we are, throughout the process as well, we are enforcing all the pause orders and restrictions, which I know are difficult, but which we know are working. As we see New York continue to look to be in very good shape compared to an increasingly large number of other states, I think that's important validation of our approach, albeit a difficult one, but an effective one that we have to maintain going forward. So that rapid response plan remains in place. We are ready as needed, and I just want everyone to understand that and appreciate everyone's help that's been a part of that. As we go forward, as we close out the public health aspect, the same reminder that I often like to share with everyone: please do your part as an individual. Each of us is empowered to keep things in check, to keep the numbers where they are, and you can do that in 3 primary ways: wearing masks, maintaining that social distance, and washing hands and using hand sanitizer. All those things work. The science more and more is showing them to be very effective, and our data right in front of our eyes here in Ulster County has clearly shown that as well as our business safety plans and our reopening plans and processes, that it is effective. We've actually been able to, not 100%, but to a significant percent, get the economy open and going somewhat again without seeing a huge reemergence so far. And so let's please continue to maintain that, and remember, each of us has a part in it. A few other updates before we wrap up. I've talked about this before, but I want to put in one more plug. Today is Tuesday. Tomorrow, on Wednesday evening, we'll be having the first public meeting, think of it as a virtual town hall, for our Ulster County Justice and Reform Commission. As a reminder, this is a commission that has 15 members from across the community, representing leaders from our communities of color, government leaders, elected officials, religious and spiritual leaders, all coming together to bring voice to the concerns and the need for change from our community. But we all as a group decided that before we give, allow those 15 members to speak, first they need to listen. And we want this process to be guided by a grassroots, bottom-up voices of our community. So unfortunately, in the normal times, we would all get together and have that discussion, but we're going to have to improvise and adapt, and we'll be having tomorrow night. It is at 6 p.m. Wednesday, July 22nd, via Zoom. The sign up is on your screen in front of you. It's on our webpage. It's on our social media. There's a Facebook invite, all those good things. Please, if you can do one thing today to help, please just share that link, share that event, and sign up yourself. Even if you don't want to make a public comment, just to listen and to hear from those that do. We have gotten a lot of emails and calls and even some messages dropped at our 3 physical boxes around the county. So thank you to everyone that has already contributed. But we really want to have as many folks represented in the live conversation. So again, please join us tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Shifting gears a little bit to the economic recovery, I wanted to just share an important and exciting program that New York State has rolled out. We know how much pressure our residents are under financially, but especially those that are tenants and renters. We've had some relief from the federal unemployment support and state unemployment and other programs, but we know that the pressure is ramping up, and at least right now, the federal unemployment benefit will end at the end of July. So we know the pressure is going to get worse, and that there are significant numbers of folks out there who are rightly afraid and worried that they're not going to be able to pay their rent. So New York State has stood up a COVID-19 rental assistance program. We're helping to administer that here at the county, and we want to make sure that everyone is aware of this. Basically, it's for anyone who has lost income due to COVID-19, which we know are thousands of members of our community. And essentially, it allows you to apply and receive anywhere from 1 to up to 4 months of rent relief. You do have to meet some income thresholds. The goal here, of course, is to help those with economic need, but they're sort of the pretty standard thresholds. And if you can show that you've been affected by the pandemic, which we know so many have, you can participate in this program and potentially get up to 4 months of rental assistance. The one challenge with this program is it's a very tight window to apply. Today is the 21st, right? Is that right? Yes, today is the 21st, and applications are due. I'll put some info up on the screen here. Applications are due in just 9 days on July 30th. So I know that's a very tight turnaround, and so this is another thing that we will be sharing, of course, but also ask your help to get the word out to your neighbors and friends and others who may have need for housing assistance and rental assistance. It's a New York State program, so that you'll go to the New York State website there on the screen to sign up. If you have any questions, you can call the state number, but also our folks at our Ulster County Recovery Service Center are familiar with this program, and also we are here to help you. You know, sometimes I know calling up to a statewide number feels like you may never get a reply, and there's lots of those things. So we've tried to centralize all that here in Ulster County at one single point where you can get that help. So for us, that is our Recovery Service Center, staffed by a great team of folks, and that number is 845-443-8888. Or you can go on our website and chat with them or email. But we are standing by to help meet whatever those recovery needs are, whether it's housing, food, mental health services, questions about getting tested, economic support for you as an individual or a business. We are here for you at that number. So please reach out more broadly, and definitely by July 30th, reach out for this rental assistance program because it's a quick turnaround. The final thing that I wanted to share with everyone, I don't usually talk about, we try to keep it local. We try to keep it focused on, especially, of course, what's happening with COVID. But this week on Monday, the Congress, both the House and the Senate, started back in session. And over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we are at a very critical moment where many of the programs and support that our representatives from Congressman Delgado to Senator Schumer and Gillibrand, much of the support that they fought for and got in place that's helped everyone in this county and around the country, many of those programs are set to expire. Some of them have already expired, and we have additional needs as we still fight this pandemic, and as it actually gets worse in most of the country, we still have great need. And so I want to make everyone aware of that, to recognize that the debates and the discussion that are happening in Washington over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I ask that each of you pay attention to that and get engaged in that, because what happens there will absolutely materially affect us, from loans to small businesses to unemployment support that's set to expire at the end of this month in just 10 days. And finally, it will also hopefully result in much needed federal relief to our local governments, our state government, our county government, which I'm a little, of course, biased towards, as well as our towns and villages in our city. The main message that I want for you all to hear and understand is that your local governments have been on the front lines of this COVID pandemic. From that very first case we had in Ulster County on March 8th, which is a day that I'll remember for quite a while, our county government and our whole team, all of our 24 municipalities, and of course our state led by Governor Cuomo, have been working tirelessly, nonstop, to do everything we can, from the decision to close our schools proactively, to getting testing sites set up, to ramping up our nursing and public health response, and so many other things. Local governments and state governments, we have been the ones making this happen, and that does not occur at no cost. And since the pandemic, we've been doing all the things we needed to do and have received zero direct federal support. Our county government has received zero direct support so far. And so we are at a moment where we desperately need that support. The good news is at least here in Ulster County, we have representatives at the federal level who understand that. Congressman Delgado voted for and helped shape a House bill that was passed by a significant margin that would allocate around $3 trillion of federal support in this next round across a whole bunch of areas to meet multiple needs, including the need for state and local government. So I want to thank him and his House colleagues for that. The moment that we're at now, to be a little wonky about this, is the Senate, the U.S. Senate, 100 senators have to act. And the real pressure point for this is the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Mitch McConnell, who has delayed and stalled while COVID has grown and started devastating pretty much every state in the union. The Senate Republicans have failed to act. And I'm not saying that because this is a political thing. That's just the facts. The House has passed their bill and nothing has happened in the Senate as COVID gets worse and worse and worse. Senator Schumer has been incredible in pushing and fighting, as has Senator Gillibrand. So my specific ask to all of you watching, I know it feels weird as a New Yorker, but your New York representatives are doing what they need. What we need to do is hold Senator Mitch McConnell and other Senate Republicans who haven't acted, we need to hold them accountable and say, look, we desperately need this relief. We wish we were through it. It would be great if we were through COVID here and definitely nationally, but we are not, sadly. And we've, in fact, over the last 10 days, almost every day we're setting new national records for the number of new cases. We're starting to see hospitalizations spike nationally and fatalities spike nationally. It's the same thing that happened right here in our county. So we know where that is going, unfortunately, and we know it's going to get worse before it gets better. So now is that critical moment where we need the Senate to act. So I'm going to, I don't usually do this, but I'm going to throw up the phone number and email for Senator McConnell, because at this point, for all of you that want to help shape the level of support and relief we're going to get, this is the most concrete thing that you can do. And it actually does matter to make these calls and to send these emails. The offices keep track of it, and they are responsive to this. So please take a few minutes and do that, and make sure to, as I said, please pay attention to what's going to happen. I know it's in the sort of the peak of summer, but this is a very make or break moment at the federal level. And again, I feel good because I know our representatives are fighting for us to advance these things, but I am very concerned. At this point, it is an existential sort of situation here in Ulster County, in New York State, and around the country, and we need to see real action, and specifically, we need direct relief for our state and county and local governments at this moment. So thank you for listening to that. Again, I do try to keep it local, but that has very local impacts for us and what's happening in DC. So please feel free to reach out with any questions on that if you have them. Finally, as we wrap up, we'll shift back to what's happening here in Ulster County. Project Resilience continuing to move along and to provide food to those in critical need as that need continues. We have now delivered 277,895 meals to residents in Ulster County. I'm so proud of what we've done with Project Resilience and that we've been able to keep it going. So thank you to everyone that's a part of that, whether you've contributed a few dollars or more, or whether you've delivered some meals as a volunteer or prepared some meals to our community food banks that are doing this work as our partners. Thank you. So we're going to keep that going. And finally, a broader thank you to all of you that have been and remain and will be on the front lines of this pandemic, not just the health aspects, but all of the challenges and pressures that we're feeling as a community. Last night I had a really cool opportunity to go and participate in a socially distanced and very small graduation for 19 volunteer firefighters, mostly teenagers or in their early 20s, all from our community here, young people who just went through a 21-day, 189-hour very intensive fire training course, all as volunteers, no pay for this. We have, in this case, we have hundreds of volunteer firefighters and first responders, but to see these young people at this moment willing to go through that intensive training, and then ultimately to now go join their local volunteer fire departments and be willing at a moment's notice to put themselves in great harm, that speaks volumes about the kind of community that we have, and that same spirit of selfless service and of doing for others and putting yourself at risk to protect those around you. I hope that each of us can honor that spirit in our own way as we work and fight through this pandemic. But I want to give a shout out to those young folks who accomplished a great feat in completing what I think is very difficult training, and ask that all of us keep that kind of sacrifice in mind as we each sometimes complain about putting on a mask. That is a relatively minor thing that all of us can do to help our community. So thank you to everyone. We will see you on Thursday at 2 p.m. Please, again, tune in tomorrow night for our Justice and Reform Commission at 6 p.m. And stay safe, healthy, and be resilient. Take care.